In 1933, an ambitious filmmaker aspires to shoot a film on an uncharted island. He sets out on a perilous journey with his film crew, only to discover that the island is home to strange creatures. In a small theater in New York, the passionate vaudevillian actress, Anne Darrow, loves to perform and make people laugh. However, when she arrives at the theater the next day, she's devastated to see their show's been shut down, leaving her and her co-actors jobless. Desperate for work, Anne chases agent Mr. Weston downtown, convincing him to give her an audition for a role in a play written by her favorite screenwriter, Jack Driscoll. After breaking the news that the part had been cast, Mr. Weston decides to help out the struggling performer by giving her an address for a gig and tells her to look for Kenny Kay. Meanwhile, after film director Carl Denham observes the investor's disappointment in his presentation, he reveals that the story has changed and he intends to take his crew to shoot on an undiscovered island. As the investors discuss his proposal, they send Carl to the lobby, where he meets with his assistant Preston. Outside the room, Carl takes a glass and uses it to eavesdrop. Upon hearing the negative comments about him, the determined director rushes with Preston to hastily pack their belongings and leave that very evening. However, in the taxi, Preston informs Carl that the lead actress has dropped out, prompting the director to look for another actress, preferably one who's a size 4. As Carl looks at photos of petite women posted at the burlesque theater, he spots Anne in front of the building, whom he immediately thinks is perfect for the role. Down on her luck and short on cash, Anne steals an apple from a vendor. When the store owner confronts her, Carl intervenes to protect her. He then takes her out to dinner, where he persuades her to star in the movie by telling her Jack Driscoll wrote it. Later, Carl and Anne head to the docks to board the SS Venture. Anne thinks they're headed for Singapore, but Carl intends to bring her and the rest of the crew to an uncharted island. All of a sudden, Preston tells Carl that the studio called the police, and they're on their way to arrest him. Carl gives Captain Engelhorn an extra $1,000 to set sail immediately so he can get away. Carl meets the screenwriter Jack Driscoll on board, who hands him a 15-page unfinished script. Because he wants to make a full-length film, Carl delays writing the screenwriter's check as the ship leaves the dock, leaving Jack no choice but to stay aboard. A moment later, Choi takes Jack to the cargo area, which is filled with animal cages that the captain uses to keep his illegal shipment, such as rare animals. Soon after, Jack chooses a large cage to bunk in, but upon opening it, a bottle of chloroform rolls onto the floor, which the screenwriter finds suspicious. Later, he discovers that the ship carries multiple crates of the substance. In his quarters, the self-absorbed lead actor, Bruce Baxter, admires his visage on the movie posters on the wall. In the cargo hold, Jimmy arrives to give Jack his meal. On his way out, the young sailor steals the screenwriter's pen, but Engelhorn's first mate, Ben Hayes, catches him and orders Jimmy to give it back. After returning the pen to Jack, Hayes shares that Jimmy means no harm and just likes being in the area. The first mate also reveals that he first found Jimmy as a stowaway when he was a boy. Later, a concerned Hayes confronts Jimmy and advises him to seek alternative careers so as not to remain on the ship for the rest of his life. The young sailor tells Hayes that he's educating himself and shows him a stolen book from the New York library. In her cabin, Anne rehearses her introduction to Jack, whom she greatly admires. Shortly after, Carl introduces her to the rest of the film crew. After meeting Herb the cameraman and Lumpy the chef, the excited actress spots Mike, the boom operator, and mistakes him for Jack. However, she's surprised to discover the screenwriter standing right behind her. Meanwhile, Baxter returns to his cabin and encounters Jimmy along the way. Upon opening the door, he's shocked to see rude doodles drawn over his posters. When he sees that one of them has a mustache, he looks into the mirror and realizes that it suits him. As Carl helps Jack write the script, he casually reveals that they'll be filming on Skull Island, surprising the screenwriter. The director didn't mention it because he doesn't want the crew to be frightened. However, Jimmy overhears their conversation and tells the others. Later, Anne and Baxter shoot the first scene, where they are casually conversing about women being on ships. When Baxter is done, he passes by Jack, whom he taunts about his boring script. While Anne returns to her cabin, she encounters Jack, who compliments her ability to balance on a moving ship. He praises her performance with Baxter earlier, especially her improvisation. That afternoon, an inspired Anne shoots her scene, giving a convincing performance of a woman teary-eyed watching the beautiful sunset, and her acting moves both Carl and Jack. Later, Carl speaks with Engelhorn, who mentions that there's no land in the filmmaker's desired direction. The captain refuses to sail to a place he knows nothing of. However, Carl remains steadfast in his efforts to complete his film and asserts there's nothing to lose in exploring it anyway. Moments later, Hayes Hayes, Lumpy, and Jimmy confront Carl for lying about Singapore when he intends to go to an uncharted island. The filmmaker reveals that he wants to find Skull Island so he can show it to the world. Concerned about Carl's plan and its risks, Lumpy and Hayes reveal an incident from 7 years ago when they saw a drifting castaway that came from an island hidden in fog. They mention that the castaway, who ended up stabbing himself, spoke of a mysterious creature lurking behind a 100-foot wall. Hearing the story, the unconvinced Carl remains motivated to reach the island. Meanwhile, the inspired Jack writes a new script, and the bashful Anne dances with the ship's crew. Later that day, Jack goes to Anne's cabin and tells her that he wrote a play for her as a gesture of his romantic attraction to her. Jack gets closer to Anne, and they kiss passionately. A few seconds later, a sailor gives Englehorn a note about Jack's arrest warrant. The captain orders Hayes to change the course to Rangoon. When Carl notices that the destination is changing, he confronts the captain, who reveals his knowledge of the warrant. Carl begs the captain to give him another week because he doesn't have anything filmed yet, but Englehorn asserts that he wants him off his ship. As Hayes sets the course to Rangoon, Englehorn notices something strange, so he orders the first mate to check the stars, but he quickly confirms that there are no visible stars in the sky. Minutes later, Jack hands Carl the map, where he points out a strange ink blot that looks like a growling ape. The ship passes through a fog, and the captain orders the sailors to check the sea level. Suddenly, Jimmy announces that there's a huge wall ahead. When the ship hits a stone wall, Englehorn tries to steer, but there are rocks everywhere. The captain asks Hayes to take the wheel and quickly looks at the situation outside. As the ship hits multiple rocks, Englehorn steers until they finally settle in front of a rock that looks like an ape. Upon seeing the rock formations, Carl is amazed and thinks it's good film material. As the crewmen repair the ship the next morning, Carl and his film crew ride a small rowboat to Skull Island. When the crew reaches land, they pass through a strange cave filled with skulls. As they look around the stone ruins, Preston thinks the place is deserted. Carl suddenly spots a native child with one arm outstretched. The director approaches the child and attempts to give her chocolate, but she bites his hand. Later, Carl and his crew discover the many natives inhabiting the place. Suddenly, a hostile native pierces Mike with a spear, ending his life. The other natives come out of hiding to attack them. Another crewman is crushed to death while the others are restrained. As an elderly native mumbles words in her language, Carl is pressed to a stone and is about to be killed. Before one native hits Carl, Englehorn arrives just in time to rescue him. After the captain shoots the tribesman in the chest, the others are frightened by the gunshot, prompting them to run away. The crew get back on the ship, and Carl promises to finish the movie for his colleague and give the money to his family. As the ship prepares to sail off, one of the natives sneaks inside the ship and abducts Anne. When Jack discovers that Anne is missing, he goes to the captain and tells him to turn back so they can rescue the actress. Meanwhile, the natives restrain Anne and take her to the elder, who slaps her multiple times. Later, they put a tribal necklace around her neck and sacrifice her to an enormous gorilla named Kong. Aboard, the whole crew equips themselves with guns and takes a rowboat back to the island. They infiltrate the natives and shoot to scare them off. Suddenly, the crew hears a loud growl nearby, followed by Anne's scream. Jack announces that it's coming from behind the wall and runs up the stairs. Meanwhile, Carl peeks through an opening, and his eyes widen at the sight of Kong. Carl is troubled by what he saw, but refuses to say what it is. Englehorn orders some of the crew to return to the ship, while others continue the rescue mission for 24 hours. Hayes commands Jimmy to stay, but he ends up joining anyway. Meanwhile, Carl instructs Herb to bring a wide-angle lens for filming. As the rescue party goes through the woods, they encounter a wild triceratops, which attacks them and throws some of the crew away. Just before the creature gets Jack, Hayes shoots it and successfully takes it down. Carl and Herb take footage of the dinosaur's moving tail. Elsewhere, Kong grabs Anne on top of a cliff and growls loudly as he shakes her. To escape the ape's grip, the frightened actress takes the tribal necklace and uses it to prick his gigantic hand. As she hears the crew calling for her, she tries to run, but the ape manages to catch her. The following morning, Hayes is taken aback to see that Jimmy has joined them. When the young sailor expresses his desire to assist in bringing Anne back, the first mate hands him a gun. In the woods, Lumpy shoots at the annoying insects, but Hayes calls him out to conserve ammunition. When the crew exits the forest, Carl takes the camera to shoot a wide angle of the valley. Meanwhile, Jack notices a large footprint that he and the crew believe belongs to the creature that took Anne. Lumpy, on the other hand, suspects that it's a print from the abominable snowman. The crew realizes that Carl's missing, but the director is at the valley with Herb and Baxter to shoot a scene with the brontosauruses. When Baxter sees the dinosaurs heading towards him, he leaves Carl and Herb and runs back. Moments later, Jack notices Carl, Herb, and a stampede of brontosauruses running in their direction. As the dinosaurs run from a pack of venatosauruses chasing them, some of the crew are crushed in the charge. Baxter tries to stay in a safe spot but is forced to run when a venatosaurus suddenly appears on top of him. In fear, he shoots at a venatosaurus and then a brontosaurus, causing the other dinosaurs to fall on top of each other, giving them time to escape. escape. As the crew climbs to safety, a group of Venatosauruses chases them. Herb gets stuck, so he hands Carl the tripod. Despite the director's best efforts to save him, the Venatosaurus ends up devouring Herb. Following Herb's passing, Carl tells Preston that he'll continue the film in honor of the cameraman and donate the proceeds to his family. As the crew resumes their mission, Baxter announces his decision to return to the ship because it'll leave in 9 hours and convinces some of the crew to join him. Jack, who's determined to rescue Anne, calls him a coward. Meanwhile, Anne wakes up and attempts to escape while Kong is busy eating bamboo. However, Kong growls at her when he catches her running. Confused with the ape's reaction, Anne tries to test its intelligence by dancing. As she makes funny movements, she notices that the colossal ape is entertained. Soon, Kong tries to play with her by pushing her and then laughing. However, when Anne shows anger at the ape, he growls and throws a tantrum, then leaves her alone, giving the struggling actress an opportunity to escape. Meanwhile, as the crew rows through a mysterious swamp, they encounter some scorpiopeds crawling up their boat. After finishing off all the scorpiopeds, a pteranodon, a dangerous fish with an eel-like tail, shakes their boat. Jack finds himself at the river's bottom, where he witnesses the creature devouring one of the crew members. Later, Jack is able to get back on dry land with the rest of the surviving crew. Despite the danger they are facing, the ambitious Carl keeps the camera rolling, capturing the scene when the pteranodon devours another crewman. As they continue to find Anne, the crew passes through the woods. When they hear movement, a defensive Lumpy fires into the unknown, only to find out he's injured a moa bird. To put the poor creature out of its misery, he shoots it again. Soon, the group reaches a log bridge that leads to a mysterious cave, where Kong is. However, the angry ape runs out and throws Hayes against a stone wall, ending his life. As this is all happening, Carl makes sure he is filming to get the interesting scene. Soon, the crew attempts to attack Kong, but the colossal ape shakes the log, causing the others to fall to their deaths. As the ape turns the log over, Carl drops his camera and gets stuck on a branch. Choi, on the other hand, calls Lumpy for assistance, but he falls before he can be saved. Carl, Jack, Jimmy, Lumpy, and the others are able to hold tightly to the branches as the log falls. However, when the log bridge gets stuck, the group falls into an insect pit. Meanwhile, Anne makes her way out of the forest, where she encounters a photodon feeding on a fallen creature. While sneaking away, she catches its attention when she crushes a branch with her feet. Fearful for her life, Anne hides inside a log, but just when she thinks she's safe, she sees a megapede above her. When Anne crawls out of the log, the Vastatosaurus Rex, or V-Rex, which devoured the photodon, chases her. Another pair of dinosaurs follows her, but Kong appears out of nowhere to save her from the ferocious creatures. Later, Kong defeats the two and is left to face the final V-Rex. The ape ends the dinosaur's life by stretching its mouth open and breaking its jaws. After the battle, Anne asks Kong to wait for her as he leaves, so the ape grabs the actress and puts her on his shoulder. Meanwhile, in the pit, Jack wakes up and throws a flare at the mysterious insects to scare them off. He approaches the frightened Jimmy, who mourns for Hayes. Carl, on the other hand, awakens, but is devastated to find his camera broken. Lumpy sees his fallen friend Choi, and when he becomes aware of the presence of numerous Carnictus, a Weta Rex sneaks up behind him. When Jack tries to help him get it off, the other Weta Rex end up crawling on the screenwriter's body. Lumpy uses a machete to attack the Carnictus, but the creatures end up swallowing his limbs and his head, ending his life. Enraged, Carl uses his gun to fight the Weta Rex. Meanwhile, Jimmy loads his machine gun and shoots at the Weta Rex wrapped around Jack. Just as the crew is overwhelmed by the insects, Engelhorn, Baxter, and other crewmen arrive to help them. Before climbing the rope, Jimmy sees the lifeless Hayes, whom he considered his father figure on the ship. He takes his hat and wears it in his honor. Meanwhile, Kong sits silently when Anne approaches him. To entertain the gorilla, the actress juggles rocks, but she fails to make him laugh. As Kong looks off into the distance, Anne observes the beautiful view. Kong opens his palm so Anne can sit on it. Elsewhere, Carl speaks with Engelhorn and shares his plan to trap the ape by using the chloroform on the ship. Jack, on the other hand, is still hopeful and decides to continue his search for Anne alone. After venturing through the dark forest, Jack finally reaches Kong's lair and sees Anne sleeping on his hand. When Anne wakes up, Jack quietly reaches for her hand to rescue her, but Kong awakens and takes Anne away from him. Suddenly, a colony of Pteropus mordax attack Kong, causing him to let go of Anne. While Kong is distracted, Jack and Anne descend from the cliff. Halfway, Kong grabs the vine to pull it up, but a Pteropus mordax flies off with a portion of the rope where Jack and Anne are hanging onto and later drops them in a river. Jack and Anne reach dry land and continue to run through the forest until they see the huge opening. The panicked screenwriter calls for Carl's help, but he delays giving them access to a bridge when he tells the crew to wait. Preston, wanting to help Jack and Anne, grabs the machete and cuts the rope, dropping the wooden bridge for the couple. When the couple reunites with the crew, Anne realizes that Carl and the men's plan is to capture the ape. Anne tries to stop them, but the crew is persistent. Engelhorn throws a few bottles of chloroform in an attempt to stun the huge ape and trap trap him. However, when Kong sees Jack taking Anne away, he breaks free from the ropes and chases them. As the crew board their rowboats, Kong catches them and throws one rowboat on the cave wall, destroying it. When the ape is about to reach the other rowboat, Engelhorn shoots a harpoon into his knee. As soon as Kong loses his balance, Carl throws a chloroform bottle on the ape's face, knocking him out. Before going unconscious, the ape reaches out his hand to the teary-eyed Anne. Meanwhile, Carl stands beside the unconscious ape and declares him the eighth wonder of the world. He promises to distribute the profits to all, knowing that the ape will bring him fortune. After bringing Kong to New York, Carl achieves great success when his show sells out. Everyone is excited to see the colossal ape, including the studio executives that bailed on him. As Carl enjoys his newfound fame, Preston looks at him with disdain from afar. Meanwhile, as Jack watches the play he wrote for Anne, he storms off to go to Carl's show to tell the actress his true feelings. Back in the auditorium, Carl is in the spotlight, making his opening remarks. He shares the story of their adventure to pursue the beast, which has taken 17 lives, and how a woman from New York captured the heart of the wild beast. Following Carl's introduction, the curtain is raised to reveal Kong, chained in chrome steel. The crowd roars in awe as they witness the 25-foot creature. When Jack arrives at Carl's show, he hears the director introduce Baxter as the hero who saved Anne. As Jack watches, Preston stands next to him and expresses his disappointment that Carl's promise of fortune is just an admission ticket. Later, Carl introduces the part of the performance where Anne will be sacrificed to Kong. However, when Anne appears on stage, Kong growls when he realizes that it's not the Anne he knows. When Jack sees that it's a different actress, he asks Preston where Anne is. Preston has no idea where she is and only knows she turned down Carl's offer to star in the show for a lot of money. In another theater, a teary-eyed Anne wears a beautiful white dress as she performs on stage. When Jack notices that Kong is getting agitated, he advises the crowd to leave. Seconds later, Kong is able to break free from his chains and roars at the crowd. As the ape searches for Anne, he wanders out into the streets but fails to find her. Jack drives a taxi to distract Kong from destroying the city. When the ape sees the screenwriter, he chases him down the streets, breaking everything that crosses his path. Eventually, he catches Jack and knocks the taxi over, leaving him unconscious. Kong looks to his side and calms down when he suddenly sees Anne walking towards him. He grabs the actress and goes to a frozen pond in a park, where he enjoys sliding around on the ice while holding her. While Kong enjoys the moment with Anne, the police arrive and shoot him. Later, the huge ape climbs the Empire State Building, taking Anne with him. When the ape reaches a flat surface, he rests for a while to admire the beautiful sunrise. Moments later, planes arrive to take him out. He puts Anne on the floor and then climbs to the top, where he pounds his chest and roars. Shortly after, the planes shoot at him, wounding his chest. Anne climbs up the ladder to join Kong on top. However, the gunshots hit the ladder, detaching it from the wall. Before Anne falls, Kong catches her and puts her back inside the building, where she can be safe. The planes continue to shoot, but Kong climbs up on top of the building again to pound his chest and growl. Anne follows the ape and tries to stop the planes from shooting. As Kong's wounds weaken him, he takes a final look at Anne, who touches his face gently. After getting hit by more gunshots, the ape falls down to the street below, leaving Anne in tears. Shortly after, Jack finally arrives and hugs the devastated actress tightly. A swarm of photographers descends upon the scene to snap photos. After a man claims that airplanes were responsible for the ape's demise, a stunned Carl emerges from the crowd to disagree, saying that it was beauty that killed the beast.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.